I'll give you a short introduction, basically to let you understand the basin. Because as you saw from the first presentation, over the years, the focus has always been offshore. But now we're talking inland. Then I will also tell you about why GNPC took the lead to invest and acquire data in the basin. We'll also look at the geological potential. Then I'll move on to discuss the recent exploration activities in the basin. What has been happening? We hear offshore production going on, drilling going on, data being acquired. What is going on with the Voltaian Basin? And then thirdly, we discuss why it could be the game changer. And finally, I'll share with you what the plans are for this very important basin. So the map you see on the left is showing the 4 main basins of Ghana, and the one that is arrowed is the Voltaian Basin. The comparison with the offshore is that if you calculate the size of where we are exploring offshore, from the coastline to about 3,000 meters of water, and put all together, it's less than 70,000 square kilometers. The Voltaian Basin alone is over 100,000 square kilometers. And as I keep telling policymakers, if it takes 7 years for an operator to operate within 2,000 square kilometers of an acreage, then if you ask GNPC to explore in the Voltaian Basin, you can understand why we need more time to unlock it. Voltaian Basin doesn't have the kind of data sets that we saw offshore. It is the least explored basin. In fact, for many years, it was not part of the discussion, especially in 1970 when the first offshore discovery was made. Voltaian was totally forgotten. I'll give you a little history about why that happened. So this slide gives you the history, the size. The initial exploration in the basin started in 1961 when the government of Ghana decided to do a government-to-government agreement with the former USSR and later with Romania. The arrangement then was for them to bring in geoscientists and experts into Ghana to help the then Geological Survey Department conduct geological mapping and acquire basically airborne data over the basin. In doing that, some few water boreholes were drilled. And the results from some of these boreholes convince explorers that there is a potential in investing in the basin. So in 1971, the government decided to demarcate blocks in the basin. Shell came to Ghana and were awarded 10 blocks to explore for 5 years. And according to the history, they engaged a private company to acquire gravity and magnetic data over the 10 blocks. And after that, they decided to drill one well. They drilled the well. It was an exploratory well, but it was shallow. And the well did not turn out to be successful. And right after that, Shell packed their things and left. And all the other companies that have been given blocks also dropped it and left Ghana. And that was the story of the Voltaian Basin. It basically died off. And it was around the same time that discoveries were made offshore, both in the Voltaian Basin and in the Tano Basin. So the focus shifted from onshore to offshore. So nothing happened until 2005, when the European Union, together with the Minerals Commission, decided to invest into an airborne geophysical survey, basically for the minerals industry. But the Geological Survey Department was a key company involved in that, and they covered both the Voltaian Basin and the Kita Basin. That data became the turning point for the basin. GNPC had access to that data, and after the analysis, we confirmed that the basin has the minimum thickness required for hydrocarbon to be generated. There's more than 6 kilometers of sediment deposited in 2 depot centers, and that confirmed to us that it is possible to have oil generated in the basin. So as a national oil company, we were given the mandate to lead the exploration activities towards unlocking the basin. Several companies expressed interest in exploring in the basin, but the government decided that because we don't know what is there, it makes sense for the national oil company to take the lead to really tell us about the value of the basin. So what's the geological potential? What is the geological potential? The Voltaian Basin, if you look at the map that you have, there is also the location where the Premwasi well was drilled in 1976. Okay. All that I'm showing you here is that the basin has the basic elements of the petroleum system. It has clastics, it has carbonates, it has shales that are rich, organic rich shales, and it is deep enough for us in various, from the north to the south and to the east. The shallowest part is in the western parts of the basin, and this basin has analogs. The closest is the Taudeni Basin that is seen in Mali and Mauritania, and those basins have seen drilling and discoveries. We have looked at the data from the wells, and you can see a clear similarity in terms of age. This is new Proterozoic, which means it's about 1 billion years old. The youngest sediment is about 400 million years old. If you compare to offshore, where we are drilling in the Turonian and Cenomanian, which are 90 to about 100 years old, you can see that these sediments are old. However, Taudeni tells us that we are still within the oil and gas window. These basins were developed around the same time. Now, what has happened over the years since 2005? In 2017, GNPC decided that after analyzing the legacy data, the aeromark, gravity, and other satellite data, after analyzing that, we were able to decide that it is worth acquiring seismic to try and understand the regional structure of the basin. Prior to that, all the maps that we were seeing were developed out of, surface mapping. So we started acquiring 2D seismic. Initially, phase 1 were regional lines from north-south, east-west, and that defined the structure of the basin. We went on to phase 2. Phase 3, we decided to infill the lines because the initial acquisition had like 40 to 30 kilometers apart. So we're able to bring it down to 10. Phase 4, we brought it down to 4 kilometers or less. So we have had 4 phases of seismic acquisition. That has cost the corporation over $160 million. But the value of this data and the information that we have gathered for future exploration is more. We also acquired some subsurface gases in the basin to try and convince ourselves that oil and gas has been generated in situ. And that survey was also very positive. We were able to confirm that the gases that were collected were actually gases that has migrated from either a source or a reservoir within the basin. And recently, our attention was called on to seepages that were found in the southern part of the basin. we have taken samples of those seepages, we have sent them to the lab, and it's been confirmed that this is oil generated in the basin. So we have data that tells us that it is worth investing in the basin, and for us, it is the next big thing in terms of oil exploration. This gives you just a snapshot of one of the seismic lines. These are 2D lines, but very high quality seismic. GNPC and Exploco is planning to move beyond seismic and drill an exploratory well that will test all the formations up to the basement. The idea is that we need this recent data to tie back to the seismic that has been acquired in the basin. If you visit the data show, we have some of the lines there for you to look at, and there's a team that will explain the prospectivity to you. Now we have acquired over 6,200 line kilometers of 2D seismic across the basin, and the map to your left shows you how dense they are. Now, what would be the economic implications if we make a discovery onshore in the Voltaian Basin? For GNPC, the road towards unlocking the basin will involve investment. We will need to invest a lot of money. And this investment, we do not intend to do it alone. Certainly, we will look for joint venture partners for Exploco, the subsidiary, and also for GNPC. But for government, successful exploration will mean that there will be more taxes, there will be royalties from the production sharing agreements that will be signed. Then GNPC carried an additional interest, will also bring revenue to the corporation, and then there will be ready barrels. Successful exploration and development will also lead to job creation. It will lead to foreign direct investment. There will be a lot more investors that will look for other blocks to invest. There will be infrastructure development. We'll have new roads. We'll have facilities in the area. There will be new settlements because we are exploring in farmlands and sometimes close to towns. There will also be energy security. For us as a country, more oil means that we will be independent of gases from Nigeria and the rest. And when you look at Taudeni Basin and the analogs, the US Geological Survey actually estimated that for Taudeni Basin, there is a minimum of 10 TCF of gas in that basin and over 2 billion barrels of oil. If you have a similar basin like Taudeni, we in GNPC believe that there's a lot more gas in the Voltaian than oil. So we are on the road towards ensuring that we have significant gas discoveries in Ghana. And there will also be economic diversification, because once you make an oil discovery, there's development, then the government gets revenue to invest into other sectors of the economy. And then there's also revenue generation, energy security, improve local services, increase trade opportunities for the locals and also for Ghanaians. Now, the strategic importance is that Voltaian is a frontier, and because it's a frontier, it is not on its own attractive. Most IOCs shy away from frontier basin. That is why GNPC has become the enabler to open the basin. Now that we have quality data, we are able to attract more credible investors to come in and take blocks. It's also an analog basin to others where significant resources have been discovered. In doing all this, we are mindful of the environmental considerations. And the Ministry of Energy, Ministry of Environment, GNPC, Petroleum Commission, and others have taken turns to do an environmental and strategic assessment of the basin to open the door for investment. What are the next steps? The strategic An environmental assessment has been conducted, which means that we are now able to directly explore in the basin. Now, GNPC has acquired a lot of data, seismic and non-seismic data, and this has confirmed that there is a working petroleum system. The next step is that blocks have been demarcated in the basin, and GNPC has applied for 2 blocks, one in the north and one in the south. So what we are doing now is going through the process to secure the relevant approvals. We intend to commence our procurement process towards engaging a non-seismic technology to help us zero in on where to drill. The basin, like I said, is so big, the data set is a lot, but it's still very risky. So we're looking at a non-seismic technology like satellite, thermovision, EFTG to try and narrow down on where to put a 3D or to put a well. And God willing, 2025, the first exploration well will be drilled. Thank you very much.
Let's do it once again for Mr. Michael Aryeetey, the Managing Director, GNPC Explo Co. Michael, thank you very much.